Hi, everyone.
What's up?
What's up? I'm Monica.
I'm
Money.
Sarah. Not
Welcome.
no nickname.
No nickname yet. No
Yeah,
nickname
yeah.
yet. um, we are here for something that we're starting called Play Like a They. Um, it's for our non-binary folks out there and for anyone who wants to learn about non-binary folks, but mostly
Mhm.
for our non-binary folks out there.
Yeah.
And especially those who played sports, love sports, breathe sports, identity is weaved into sports.
Mhm. All of
All
the
those
above.
things, all those
Mhm.
things. And we're here to have conversations between the two of us and maybe with other folks at some point about, yeah, about how it is to be a non-binary person in the sports world and the world. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Sarah,
And
do
the
you want?
pressure is also like it takes on or having conversations about visibility because I
Yeah.
know that when I was playing sports, I didn't really know I was non-binary. So like I
Yep.
think having conversations about how what our experiences were and maybe what other people's experiences are and like how binary sports can be,
Yeah.
it'll open maybe some doors for people. So
Yes. I didn't know that I was non-binary when I played competitive sports either, which was very confusing and very jarring.
yeah.
Like it was like I thought, I was supposed to feel a sense of belonging because I was in women's sports, but then I wasn't getting it. And even though I loved it, I still was like, something's not quite right here.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
didn't know how to, I mean, I'm, I didn't come out till later. I'm 36. It was a couple years ago. So,
Yeah.
and I think then there wasn't really like language around it, especially growing up in Texas. There was like no language around the gender spectrum for sure.
I'm sure. Well, now that you're talking a little bit about yourself, do you want to kind of go a little further? Like, who are you?
Let's go. Let's do this.
Who's
We're
Money?
gonna do some little intros. Yeah, so I'm like I said, I'm Monica. Um, yeah, I grew up playing competitive sports all the way from soccer to track to cross country to triathlons to basketball, which is the main squeeze when it comes to sports is basketball
Oh,
is my
yeah.
thing. Everything else kind of came second. It was, playing since I had a growth spurt when I was between 9 and 10 years old and grew like 5 inches. So I was like 5 feet or 5'1" in like fourth grade. So they were like basketball. Turns out I only like grew like 4 or 5 inches after that. So, but still, I stuck with it. And yeah, I was put into basketball when I was like 9 or 10, and I just like immediately loved it and played middle school, high school, and then some college basketball as well. And it was a huge part of my life. I think like, you play all year long. You play school,
Hmm.
you play travel ball, you play in the rec center for 7 hours a day if you're me and a lot of other people, and you play with people of so many genders, which is why I love basketball. It's something that really like comes together really well. And but still there's that element of there's basketball's binary. So I grew up playing basketball, playing women's basketball, and um yeah, like I was saying, something was kind of off. So now I guess I can get into what I'm doing now. I played in college, and then afterwards I kept playing competitive basketball, like in the sense where I'd like play in leagues,
Hmm.
and definitely like find areas to play. I moved to Los Angeles after college and played in leagues, found anything I could play in, played pretty competitively till I was like 28. Um I used to ref basketball when I was like younger. I was a coach, like I did the Nancy Lieberman Klein like basketball camp in
Love
Dallas
that.
and like was a coach there and did like, the college camps, and then coached Pee Wee basketball, even all spectrums
Hmm.
to like teenagers. So I just love anything basketball. And now I get to live and breathe and work basketball, working for the Portland Trail Blazers in the marketing department, which is really fun. And I have another YouTube show all about basketball called Mind Melt, with Back to the Basket, a store here in Portland, where I am in the Portland, Oregon area, by the way, everyone. That's where I'm
Hmm.
coming from. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to pass it over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
My name's Sarah. And I mean, I was an athlete too my entire life from the time I probably could walk. I was
Yeah.
picking up some sort of ball or running around and kicking something. And
Same.
I played, I mean, every sport under the sun, like ballet, gymnastics, like
Dang.
lacrosse, soccer, softball, basketball, swimming, like,
Yeah.
but the ones that really stuck were soccer and softball. Played soccer super competitively, club teams, got recruited, all of that above. Played softball also in high school. But I actually ended up playing softball in college too. So the school that I got recruited to play soccer, I switched to the softball team.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I was a walk-on who ended up getting a starting spot in a scholarship. So
I was a walk-on
worked
too.
out for me, huh? Yeah, there you go. Don't underestimate the walk-ons.
Don't at all.
No. But so I played competitively all through college, and then when I graduated college, I was coaching little kids, and I coached high school, and I coached some travel ball, and then I got a really cool opportunity to coach at Penn State University. So I did that for 3 years,
It's amazing.
which is super fun. And my last year was 2020. So
Yep.
that got cut short,
Yeah.
and then sort of the world changed. But I mean, what you said earlier about like identities being weaved into athletics and sports, like 100%, even still to this day.
Yeah.
Live, breathe, eat sports, love watching it, talking about it, writing about it, all of the above. And Monica is the one that asked me to come on this podcast and like do this
Yeah.
with them, which like I am so grateful because some of the like similar experiences, it sounds like how you felt playing basketball, softball can be, I mean, softball and baseball are obviously like two different sports, and people may
Yeah.
disagree with that, but they very much are different
So
sports.
many differences. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially the gender difference, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
um, so anyway, in a lot of ways, there's a stereotype of like lesbians play softball,
Right.
but then you see like the over like feminization of softball players with like the makeup and the braid and the
And the
hair and the like
ribbons
the
and the
tight
hair.
uniform and the ribbon. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like this weird place
It's
where
interesting.
maybe people like me, or I eventually realized, like don't necessarily fit into that.
Yeah.
Loved my team, loved my sport, like miss it all the time. And I think it's important to talk about these experiences because other people may feel the same way and like not understand what's happening. So thank
Yes.
you for having me.
Yes. I'm so glad you're here and doing this with me. And yeah, that part, having the conversations because other people might be feeling this way. And yeah, the stereotypes in sport, the lack of representation in sport, but also
Hmm.
the fact that we love it. And like you were saying, eat, breathe, sleep, write about it, watch it, play it still all the time.
Hmm.
And also talking about those like hard things in there. And like for me, sports, especially the basketball court, are like a safe haven for me. Like that's when I feel
Yes.
most myself within
Yep.
myself.
I feel
So
that.
yeah.
I feel that. And I love that you said that too, because it's like sometimes I run into, when talking to people, they're like, and this thing was like really bad for me and I didn't agree with it. So I
Yeah.
left. And like
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I'm not saying everyone does that, but I think like when you are a person who is so passionate about the thing that you do,
Yeah.
and like everything is also worth critique,
Yep.
right? And
Yes,
like,
nothing's
and then,
perfect.
yeah. And I totally agree with you. Like, I never feel more like myself than when I'm like kicking a ball or throwing a ball or like
Yeah.
swinging a bat or even like powerlifting, like anything that's like
Yeah. Oh,
athletic. I feel like I am in my power.
even
And
gender identity.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, I'm just going to repeat myself of like everything is worth critique, and I think
Yeah.
everything is worth seeing how we can make it better.
It's so true. And like the yeah, even the sports, but also the like the athletic component of it, the like working out, the like being strong is such a huge part for me of like my gender expression. And I realized when
Yes.
I'm not doing that, I don't feel like myself. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting part of like my gender expression and what makes me feel
Mhm.
like my non-binary self.
Hell yeah.
Interesting. So, and we're going to
Hate
get into so many interesting topics.
it.
So, we wanted to introduce ourselves. This is coming up for you is the first episode where we have a
Mhm.
conversation. We're both going to look very different
Yeah.
hair-wise. I change my hair all the time. You do a lot
I
now too.
Yeah, but I just yesterday I buzzed it
Yep.
off. So
Oh, amazing. Hair is such a gender expression element that I love so much. So lots of gender euphoria with my hair. Definitely.
yeah. Hmm.
Definitely.
Hmm.
But without further ado, here's the
Here we
first
go.
episode of Play Like a They. Enjoy. Bye.
Peace. But let's talk about, because we both were athletes growing up and it's a really important part of who we are. Like, what you said you always felt like something was off in the
Yeah.
context of that. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and there were different versions of it for sure. Like, I kind of settled in the fact that people were like, "You're a tomboy." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah,
I
it's like
guess
that was the
that's
only language. Yeah,
that
I
was the only
guess.
language, I guess. Yeah, and I see memes about if you were, maybe, maybe at this point, which to be clear, there's no way to exist as a non-binary person. I
Sure.
think it is like something that happens commonly. I feel like I could say.
Hmm.
Um, but also just feeling in the gray area, when you play basketball, I don't know about the sports you played. You are playing with men a lot of the time
Yes.
if it's not
Especially
competitive.
pickup and like
Pickup. Yeah,
extracurricular basketball, right?
exactly. Yeah, like
Hmm.
I went and did a women's run a couple months ago, and that was the first time I'd used a women's basketball in I don't know, since I played in college, probably.
Oh.
Which don't get me started on why there's different basketballs. Like I can't even
And also
I
like
can't even
different 3-point lines, like
yeah. I can't.
okay.
I even played in an LA league where my 3-pointers counted as 4 points because I'm a vagina
You
holder.
got that range.
I did. I did. And whenever we were down 4 points or 3 points, they were like, "Get the ball." I mean, I was always like shooting for sure because,
Sure.
respect for my shot, which was nice. But it was like, "Oh, I'm getting 4 points. Give me the ball.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's go."
That's right.
But it was so weird. It was so weird. So I think like for me something was off because I didn't feel like it was like women's sports was something that like I like fully like fit into. And I didn't think that men's sports was something that I didn't fully fit into. So I think that's what felt off is like I was like kind of like, why do I feel like this isn't exactly what it should be? And why do I feel like there's a part that's missing? And of course it's a gray area. It's not like I'm half
Right.
feminine and half masculine, which I think some people think is a thing. Um, but it was just like, the labels, the the existence, the like, I mean, of course the inequality is like a whole other thing
Mhm.
of just women and men's sports, not even talking about the gray areas. It was just like I don't feel comfy just being in women's sports and like I didn't know like what that meant.
Mhm.
Um or the like implications of it for my own identity, but I was just kind of like, okay, well, this is your opportunity, so swallow it and like fucking get going.
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
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 Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. I think for me, it's like sometimes it's hard to articulate.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Which we'll get there, Monica.
We're gonna
This
get
is
there.
episode
This is an
1. We'll
experiment
get there.
in
Yeah.
like that's the hard thing is or like people generally want me to articulate my experience, and sometimes it's like there isn't a phrase or a short paragraph or
Yeah.
an elevator pitch that I can
Right.
give you. Sometimes
Not
I
even a
can.
5-paragraph essay.
Not even a
Like,
5-paragraph essay. Sometimes I can, but a lot of times I'm like, "Oh, it's just hard to explain." Like, it's just
yeah.
hard. Yeah.
And so I think it was like when I was playing sports, it was never like I never felt like I'm a really good like player for a girl, right? Like
Yeah.
growing up, I
Yes.
always
Oh
felt
my
like, and
god.
I was
Yeah.
better than the boys, whatever
Yeah.
that means. Like I was just better than most of my peers when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I never saw it in the context of, well, I'm good for a girl, or like I'm good at
Yeah.
this sport because only girls play it. Like I always saw myself as like I am really good at the sport that I'm playing, and like I am an athlete right now. Like I never saw myself as like I am a female athlete.
Yeah.
First of all, I have an issue with the word female, which
I do
like really
too.
bothers me. So cringy.
Someone
We can
used it
talk
the
about
other
that
day
in
and
a
I was
different
like,
episode. Yeah. Huh?
yes, bookmarked for a different episode.
Yeah. And so it's like that's what's hard to articulate about it, because it like I don't even know what feeling feminine means or feeling masculine means,
Yeah.
because for me it's like I just feel like Sarah, and like I
Yeah.
don't necessarily like I don't know what high femme people feel like inside. Like they can try and tell me, but like I don't know what that feels like. And like
Oh,
I don't see myself as like a high femme person or someone who's like
I don't have it.
exuding like femininity, whatever the fuck that means. But either like I don't necessarily think I'm always exuding like masculine energy either, right? I think like there is a balance and a very like integrated flow of both.
Yeah.
And so it's uncomfortable, or it was uncomfortable, and I realized it was uncomfortable to call myself like she, her,
Yeah.
when I don't always feel like a she, her.
No.
And in the context of sports, like playing softball, which is like an only girl sport, right? At least
Yeah.
in up until college, it's like, well, everyone is she, her, but like, I don't know if I'm making any kind of
You are.
sense.
You are. You are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you are. No, you said something so eloquently that I can't remember now, but it was like, yes. Like even like I think that's what was off is I was like a little confused because
Mm.
yeah, I just don't have that like the femininity in the sense where I felt like I was supposed to growing up, and it was like
Yeah.
kind of a problem. Like it was a problem, you know, in a sense, like for other people, not for me. Because for
Yes.
me, oh, this is what you said. I'm Monica. Like I'm not, you know, I
Mhm.
just don't I don't fit in those categories. And I think basketball, it was really nice for it to be a very like a sport that in a way, like there's many ways it does not transcend gender, but there are ways that it can and
Yeah.
does. And like softball would
Yeah.
be a way harder situation.
You know, and I think it is, because it's funny that you say that, because I also see basketball as sort of a um I don't know if again, I'm not going to get anything right, but I think my perception of basketball, at least like women's basketball, is that it is like non-binary inherently.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And but women's softball, at least in my experience, and especially at the like D1 college level, and that
Yeah.
is, and I'm saying that because that is my experience, it's like hyper feminine, because there's this whole stereotype on like
Yeah.
softball players are all lesbians,
Yeah.
which like is half true, right?
Yeah.
But there's this over like hyper feminization of the players themselves. In like Florida is a perfect example of this. Like if you look at, and most softball teams that you watch on TV, it's like makeup and hair done and tight pants and too small
Right.
uniforms, and like
Whoa. I didn't
it,
even.
and that's,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what it
Yeah.
is. And so like, and I remember in college we would joke like that we were the prettiest team in the Big East. And like looking back on that, I'm like, that's kind of like a little homophobic and like heteronormative.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, it's just there's this hyper feminization in softball that I always felt was there, and that I always felt like I never fit into.
Whew. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Oh man. Yeah, I'm just like taking that all in at the moment, and dang,
Yeah, it's a
that's
lot to
wild.
think about. It's a
It's a
lot to
lot to
think
think
about. And
about.
so I didn't come out until I was 22, because
Yeah.
I do think like it's so interesting too, because we all know that research shows that the earlier you're exposed to like different kinds of people, cultures,
Yeah.
ways of life, etc., you become more aware, self-aware, and more culturally competent as a human,
Yep.
right? And I grew up in a town where that was like the norm,
That's
right?
cool.
Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was super cool, and I'm very grateful to be able to grow up in such an like an
Yeah.
area like that.
Texas over here.
Um,
We could talk about
Yeah.
that later.
Damn. Mad segregation in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
So I was
Oh,
saying,
we came out as 22. Yeah.
but yeah, but it's like, but these other entities, for some reason, infiltrated my brain. It's like the patriarchy has such a chokehold on all of us that,
Yeah.
like, even though I saw, some of my friends had two dads, some of my friends had two moms, some of my friends had single parents, like, so you get it. And
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable coming out until I was 22 years old, and I was a
Yeah.
senior in college. And
Yeah.
it's like, I, I don't know. It's like, I think it's always harder to come out to yourself than it is to like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
At least in my experience. And like, it was always okay for other people, but not for me. But I knew I didn't feel right, like, as a female athlete. But
Yeah.
like, obviously I wasn't allowed to play boy sports or with the boys at a certain age. I wasn't allowed to play. It's a whole like convoluted tornado that
Yep.
I think many people experience, and I think a lot of millennials experience that. I don't know about Gen Zers, because it's my perception of Gen Zers is that they're, it's very like fluid and everyone's
Yeah.
open and they want to talk about these things,
More
and
opportunity. Yeah.
exactly, more opportunity.
Yeah.
But I'm going on a tangent, so.
No, that's like, it's so true. And I was thinking too, I'm like, I get it. This is not like a knock on people going really hard into like the women's sports identity, because like
Mhm.
there's a lot of inequality and lack of equity, and it's like, fuck,
Yes.
if you own that, like, own it. Like, I'm here
Mhm.
for it, because it's like,
Same.
it's
Mhm.
important. It's important. But then there is this other existence, and that's what we're here for, is this other
Mhm. Mhm.
existence that's happening. And I think, yeah, I think for me too, I definitely, people, so in Texas, yeah, I did not feel empowered to even explore those things for sure. And like less than anywhere else, I think. Like, I mean, I don't know about anywhere else, but less of an option to talk about it, less of a safety to explore it for sure. And I think
Yeah.
like gender was like, no way. I'd never even heard of anything while I was
Mhm.
growing up that was outside of the binary. And I think, yeah, that sucked. I'm just gonna say it. That sucked.
Yeah.
And people would try, women athletes in general, there is that, like you were saying, that stereotype of sexuality. And people would try to label me, yeah, anything, like anything to try and understand me, like you're a tomboy,
Mhm.
like you're a lesbian, and it's like,
Mhm.
I came out, I'm not gay, but I'm not straight.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, there's another gray area that is weird also, to be honest.
Mhm.
So it's like all, people trying to like get a grasp on who you are, and you're like, yo, I'm trying to figure out who I am. If you could just like back up a few steps and not try to tell me who I am, but also accept that I might be something that you can't throw a label on. Now I'm happy to
Yes.
carry to be in a category, because it
Sure.
understands me more than any other like category I've ever
Mhm.
experienced. But
Mhm.
before, I'm like, no, like it never felt right to me to be like, yeah, I'm a female athlete. Like that never felt right. And I am grateful to basketball in the sense that like I was able to play with, I mean, at that point, I mean, I don't know, people of all genders. I don't know who I was playing with necessarily, if they
Sure.
were women or men, but I was able to really like blur those lines. And although sometimes you do have to prove yourself a little harder if
Oh
you're not a
God.
man
So true.
in sports, it is a lot. Yeah, it was a lot easier for me to just kind of be like, I'm gonna go play. I'm gonna be the only person who's not a man out on this court, and it wasn't like weird. It wasn't.
Mhm.
It's just like this was it like when you saying basketball is like more non-binary in itself was just like, yes. Like, that's how it's always felt to me, and that's why it's felt like a safer place to be, even though, individuals aren't always safe, but it's like, yeah, non-binary or basketball itself is just, like, not as binary as other sports.
Yeah, it's so true. Um, so interesting to think about. But, I think another big part of this podcast is to like talk about and highlight that like players
Yes.
exist now in sport that aren't necessarily out, that aren't necessarily comfortable talking about their sexuality
Yep.
or their gender expression, but they exist. And I hope that my hope with this is that people can listen and feel a sense of like solace, or like, "Oh, these people understand me, or they sort of understand what I'm going through right now,
Yeah.
and they can find some sort of like relation to this. And, obviously everyone's on their own timeline, no pressure,
Yeah.
but I hope that like we know that you're there because I was there and Monica was
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
like you do exist. And I think these are really important topics to talk about.
Yeah. Agreed. That first and foremost, and then maybe a secondary goal is, people who do fit in the binaries of sport
Mhm.
to like consider and not make assumptions of people that you play with who might be experiencing these things. Um I think is like an important thing for me too to give that opportunity.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, this is not just for the queers.
but like mostly.
But obviously mostly, but straights, you're welcome to come learn and listen to.
Come, be, in solidarity. We love it. We love that. We love to see it. We love to see
Oh
it.
yeah,
And I've had
no, of
many friends
course.
on this journey and people who like I just want to say right now, if you have questions, DM me. I'm like
Mhm.
I'm here for it. Like I'm going to put myself out there for that because I feel safe to do so. So if you want to ask questions about being non-binary, please. I do not represent the entire existence of non-binary hood, but like I can tell you about my experience. And I've had a lot of friends that have been like amazing to ask questions and really like be considerate and try to understand my existence. So if you are doing that with people in your life, shout out to you because it really is important to us and it really makes an impact.
Yeah, I second that. You can DM me as well. And I really appreciate questions. Like if people are genuinely curious, like of
Yeah.
course, come and ask. It's when people start making assumptions or start centering their uncomfortability
Yeah.
with maybe like if you're straight and you center your that instead of asking questions about like queerness or being non-binary or gender fluid or whatever,
Yeah.
that gets a little sticky, and that's with anything, right?
Yeah.
But questions, genuine curiosity,
Here
I'm
for
here
it.
for it. You want to learn, you want to learn, you want to get better,
You don't know what you don't know.
understand. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah. And we're here for it.
Right.
I feel like that's a good like stopping point today.
All right.
Let's yeah. I'm excited to get this out there. Play like a they. We're out here.
Hashtag play like
Hashtag
a
play
they.
like a they. We're out here. We got handles, we got shots, we got pitches, we got hits.
We got stickers.
We got stickers. Oh, we're gonna have stickers.
We're
I'm very
gonna have
excited.
stickers.
Very excited. Stay tuned for stickers. And stay tuned for these weekly
Weekly.
conversations
Let's
and some
go.
guests at some point, which is exciting. And yeah, you'll find us. I mean, we can plug the Instagram. We've got to play like a they
We do.
Instagram. Feel free to go follow it. It's not
Mhm.
fully there yet, but please follow it because we're gonna start getting some content up there. Very
Hell
excited.
yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Peace.